An HOA tried to shake me down for 92 grand on a contract my grandpa never signed, and when I laughed in their president's face, she started a war. Not a neighborly disagreement, not a can you move your trash cans kind of thing. I'm talking forged documents, trenching my land without permission, and somebody nailing a dead fish to my barn door like they were sending a ransom note. The only reason I'm still standing here, and she's not, is a stubborn old rancher named Big Jim, a lawyer who drinks whiskey out of jelly jars, and a goat called Darla who somehow ended up as evidence. Yeah, that happened. Let me back up a sec. I always thought of myself as a man of reason. You know what I mean, systems engineer in Austin. Spent most of my adult life around clean code, meeting invites, and coffee that tasted like it had a shareholder. My world was structure and logic with just enough chaos to keep it interesting. Nothing in that life prepared me for inheriting my grandfather's ranch, 400 acres of raw Texas out near Lake Whitney. A pond, stables, steel barns, and a 2-story farmhouse that smelled like cedar, old tobacco, and ghost stories. It felt like freedom in its purest form, a world where the only rules that mattered were the ones nature made. Weather, fences, animals, the quiet. You either learned to live with it, or you got your ass handed to you by a cow with an attitude and a low tolerance for amateurs. My grandfather, James Big Jim Mercer, wasn't just a rancher out here, he was a legend. The kind of man who could calm a wild horse with a whisper, but would throw a rake at a county inspector if they stepped 1 inch over his boundary without permission. He used to tell me, "You want peace, son? Stay the hell away from HOAs. They're like ticks in a velvet box, look fancy, still suck your blood." He wasn't being poetic, he was dead serious. I watched him once take a letter from some homeowner association in town, light it on fire without opening it, and use it to start the grill. That was his relationship with bureaucracy. When he passed, I left everything behind, the apartment, the city job, the reliable Wi-Fi, and moved out there. At first I thought it would be temporary, just long enough to figure out taxes, paperwork, maybe sell off a parcel or two. But from day one it felt like coming home. Mornings, I rode the fence line with a cup of coffee balanced in one hand, boots kicked up on the ATV, mist still hanging low over the pond. Nights, I sat on the porch and watched the stars punch through the dark, no street lamps, no neighbors making small talk about recycling bins. For the first time in years, I could take a full breath without concrete closing in. That piece didn't just crack, it shattered, and it started with a white Lexus too scared to get its tires dirty. About a month in, I'm fixing a hinge on the front gate when this car crawls up my gravel drive like it's sneaking past a crime scene. Out steps a woman who looks like she got pressed at the dry cleaner along with her linen pantsuit, short, perfectly blow-dried hair, clipboard tucked under her arm, smile tighter than a banker's handshake. She marches up like she owns the place. "Mr. Mercer," she says, voice sugary with a metal edge. "I'm Karen Stone, president of the High Meadow Estates Homeowners Association. It's such a blessing to see you carrying on your grandfather's legacy." That should have been my first warning. Anybody calling my inheritance a blessing usually has a bill in their pocket. "Now," she continues, flipping open a manila folder with dramatic flair, "let's talk about those past due assessments." She's got a stack of invoices, printouts, and demand letters, all very official-looking, neat fonts and bold headings, totaling $92,000 in HOA dues allegedly unpaid over the last 12 years. I stare at her like she just told me the barn had applied for a credit card. "Ma'am," I say slowly, "he wasn't a member of any HOA." Her smile doesn't even flicker. "That's a complicated matter," she says, which is code for, "I'm about to lie to your face. But now that you've inherited the property, those responsibilities pass to you." "I'll admit it," I laughed. Right there, in front of her clipboard and her perfume and her fake calm, I laughed. I honestly thought it was a mix-up, some mail routed wrong. Maybe they confused me with one of those McMansion people a few miles down the road. Then she pulls out her grand finale, a so-called agreement to join High Meadow Estates HOA, dated 2009, with what's supposed to be my grandfather's signature at the bottom. My gut twisted. The signature looked like somebody copied it from an old check using their non-dominant hand while drunk, on a moving bus, possibly being chased by bees. No notary seal, no witness signatures, not even a printed name. Just a crooked little squiggle on cheap copy paper. But Karen held it like Moses holding stone tablets. "This document proves," she says, "that your grandfather voluntarily agreed to join the HOA, and therefore all dues and obligations are now transferred to you as his heir. We expect full payment within 60 days. Otherwise, she gives that little shrug. The HOA does have a legal team. I take the paper, I look at it, and I feel this slow burn start in my chest. You're telling me this, I say, waving the flimsy page. This flimsy thing just erased decades of legal independence. She tilts her head, all corporate sympathy and veiled threat. That's the position of the board. I don't argue, not right then. I just smile, nod like an idiot, and watch her drive off, that Lexus throwing dust like confetti. The second she's out of sight, I call Juan Espinoza, my lawyer, my grandfather's old friend, and the kind of man who drinks whiskey from jelly jars and files lawsuits like he's skinning rattlesnakes. 24 hours later he calls back. Kyle, he says, this document is garbage. Your granddad never signed anything like this. I pulled the title. Your land is explicitly exempt from any HOA jurisdiction, always has been. And this agreement? He snorts. It was never filed with the county. There's no record because it's fake. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. Karen didn't back up, she doubled down. Within a week I get my first official violation letter. Then another. Then another. Suddenly I'm in trouble for failure to maintain appropriate boundary vegetation, for excessive light pollution from barn floodlights, for unauthorized use of rural equipment during quiet hours. Quiet hours on a ranch. Cows don't read your bylaws, sweetheart. Then someone files an anonymous tip to the county, claiming I'm diverting natural water sources. Translation: my fishing pond exists and they're mad about it. One of my ranch hands, Jesus, whose family has worked with my grandfather since the 80s, gets a surprise visit from immigration officers after an anonymous complaint questions his documentation. My gate lock is cut clean through one night. My mailbox gets ripped open, letters thrown in the dirt. And one morning, I find a dead fish nailed to the barn door with a sticky note that says, "Pay what you owe." It would have been funny if it didn't feel like a threat. That's the day I stop getting mad and start getting methodical. I install cameras on the gate, on the barn, along the fence line. I tell my crew, log everything, dates, times, license plates, weird looks, I don't care. We keep copies of every letter, every voicemail. One tells me, she's not just being annoying, Kyle, she's trying to break you down. One fine, one threat, one fake rule at a time. It wasn't about 92 grand anymore. It was a war of attrition, and I was the test case. So I stopped playing defense. First thing, Juan files a formal records request with the county clerk. Everything related to my property, High Meadow Estates, any overlap on paper. While he's hunting through the archives, I start knocking on doors. Not the HOA board, I'm not interested in drinking Karen's lemonade. I go to the old-timers, the folks who were here before suburbia oozed across the fields like a spilled vanilla latte. The Thompsons, for example, older couple, used to trade fence work for hay with my granddad. When I tell them what's going on, Mr. Thompson's jaw tightens. Karen pulled the same stunt on us, he says. Told us we owed 7 grand in back fees, said we'd signed some silent inclusion form. We didn't fight, couldn't afford lawyers. Sold the back 6 acres to pay it. I ask if I can see the paperwork. Same font, same layout, same sloppy fake signature line. I feel that burn in my chest flare up again. Next, I track down Marcy Delgado, former HOA secretary who quit for personal reasons. I bring a decent bottle of wine and tell her I'm not here to sue her, I just want the truth. She hesitates, then pulls out a dusty folder and an old laptop. Karen created those agreements on her home computer, Marcy says quietly. She scanned old signatures from permit applications and cut and pasted them. She told me we needed to retroactively assert jurisdiction over the outlier parcels. I quit when I realized what she was doing. She's got screenshots of emails, drafts of fake forms, even a note where Karen literally writes, "If they see a signature, they'll just pay, most people won't fight." I could believe it. I just hadn't realized how many people she'd already steamrolled. One brings in a forensic handwriting analyst, retired FBI, not impressed by anybody's nonsense. He compares the fake Big Jim's signature to the real thing. Not only is this not a match, he says, tapping the blown-up samples, this is what we call an intentional simulation. Someone tried to imitate his style. Poorly. Meanwhile, I'm scrubbing through camera footage from the new security setup, frame by frame. And there she is, 2 weeks back, 11:47 p.m., Karen in yoga pants and a jacket, standing at my mailbox, stuffing an envelope inside and muttering, "Let's see you ignore this one." I pause the video, take a sip of coffee, and say out loud, "Oh, Karen, you really stepped in it now." A local blogger who covers HOA horror stories hears about what I'm digging up and writes an article, The Fake HOA Debt Scheme Behind High Meadow Estates. Comments blow up. Neighbors I've never met pull up at my gate just to shake my hand, quietly hand me their own letters, their own agreements. Turns out I'm not a problem child, I'm a pattern. And the more truth comes out, the more Karen spirals. The next HOA letter isn't about grass height or floodlights. It accuses me of contributing to community destabilization and erosion of moral standards. I guess existing outside her control is now immoral. A neighborhood paper that survives on HOA ad money runs a column. Can one ranch spoil the suburbs? With a blurry photo of my tractor labeled odd, potentially unpermitted machinery. Then the flyers show up, bright yellow, taped to stop signs and mailboxes. Warning, neighbor refusing to follow community safety standards. Children at risk. One bullet point, reported to have aggressive livestock with unclear containment. They're talking about Darla, my goat who limps, sunbathes by the fence, and is terrified of plastic bags. Real public menace right there. At this point, even some HOA residents are getting uncomfortable. One woman brings a casserole, whispers like we're in a spy thriller. Just so you know, Karen told the board you're hosting unlicensed gatherings with heavy equipment. I think she means when you work on your tractor. But the moment I realize we've crossed from crazy into dangerous is the morning I wake up to the sound of grinding metal. I walk out in my boots and an old bathrobe, great look by the way, and there's a backhoe on my east fence line, digging a trench straight into my property. Young guy in a reflective vest is holding a clipboard, looking confused but committed. Can I ask what you think you're doing? I call out. Trenching for irrigation extension, sir, he says. HOA work order. Says you approved it. Buddy, I say, you are digging into private land. My land. He glances at the form. Karen Stone signed off. I just go where they tell me. I grab my phone, and Darla wanders over like she's supervising the mess. I scratch her head and mutter, you might be the only one around here with a working moral compass. The sheriff shows up, looks at the work order, looks at my deed, and shuts it down fast. He knows me, knew my granddad, knows I'm not the type to scream over nothing. Karen arrives 15 minutes later in her pearls and indignation, launches into a speech about environmental beautification and community cohesion. You just dug a trench on a man's property, the sheriff says. Well, the boundaries have always been fluid, she replies. That's not how property law works, he says deadpan. But it's obvious now, she's gone from rule enforcer to rogue operator, and the board either can't or won't rein her in. She even files some ridiculous emergency injunction claiming I'm disrupting HOA operational cohesion. Juan laughs so hard reading it, he spills whiskey on the counter. The thing about someone like Karen is, the more they feel control slipping, the harder they flail, and flailing people make mistakes. The morning we file the lawsuit, the air feels different, like the land itself is holding its breath. One walks into the county courthouse like it's an Old West saloon, calm, steady, dangerous. Our civil suit is 56 pages. Fraud, attempted extortion, harassment, falsifying documents, trespassing, defamation, property damage. We don't come to make noise, we come to bury the circus. We also file a criminal complaint with the DA, fake documents, expert reports, neighbor statements, and the video of Karen at my mailbox, muttering threats like a discount movie villain. I'll never forget the day she got served. I'm saddling up the ATV when her Lexus screeches to a stop by my gate. She steps out all perfume and fury, and a process server meets her halfway with the politest smile you've ever seen. Hands her the envelope like an invitation to a barbecue. She stares at it, then at me. This is slander, she snaps. No, I call back, tightening the strap on the saddle. It's called discovery. Court is a show. Karen walks in flanked by two attorneys, dressed like she's auditioning for Real Housewives of Litigation. I show up in clean jeans, boots still carrying a little barn dust, and Juan's lugging our files in an ammo crate. Neighbors fill the benches, HOA folks, old ranchers, people who sold land, people who paid fees they never owed. We start with the forged agreement. The handwriting expert puts the fake signature on a screen next to my granddad's real one. This isn't a match, he says. It's an intentional imitation. Marcy testifies next. She talks about fake documents printed on Karen's home computer, about those emails where Karen asked how to retroactively assert jurisdiction over certain parcels. You can feel the room turn on her, little gasps, head shakes, that low church murmur of people realizing they've been had. One plays the mailbox video, the one where Karen stuffs the letter in and mutters, "Let's see him ignore this one." Karen's lawyer jumps up. "That proves nothing. That could be any mailbox." One just says, "It says Mercer Ranch" in 6-inch letters right on the side, and even the judge has to hide a smile. Then it's my turn. I talk about the letters, the threats, the cut locks and dead fish, the trench, the way she went after neighbors who couldn't afford to fight. This isn't about grass height, I say. It's about control. My grandfather built that ranch with his hands and his temper, and he didn't bow to anybody. I'm not about to be the Mercer who hands it over because somebody printed a fake contract. The room goes quiet, and then Karen takes the stand and does the one thing her lawyers begged her not to do. She talks too much. She rants about preserving standards, accuses the judge of bias against homeowner integrity, and then, in the moment that basically seals her fate, says, if he'd just paid the fee, none of this would have happened. Juan cocks his head. So you admit it was about the money? She freezes like a fish on a dock. By the time the judge is done, it's not even close. The court finds the HOA liable for harassment, fraudulent demands, and unauthorized encroachment. They're ordered to pay restitution, not just to me, but to other homeowners who stepped forward. Karen is hit with personal fines, stripped of her position, and formally referred to the DA for criminal prosecution over the forged documents. When the gavel falls, I don't cheer, I don't pump my fist. I just exhale slow and heavy and think, that one's for you, Big Jim. The echo of that verdict doesn't stop at the courthouse door. It rolls down gravel roads and quiet streets. The next morning, my mailbox is just a mailbox again. No threats, no flyers, no mystery envelopes. The barn is just a barn. Even Darla seems calmer, chewing hay like a goat whose property rights have finally been acknowledged. Then the thanks start coming, emails, notes, people stopping by the gate. Some of them paid thousands they never should have owed. Some sold land they'd planned to leave to their kids. You didn't just fight for you, one old neighbor tells me. You fought for all of us who didn't know how. A town hall gets called at the community center. I'm not planning on going until I get a handwritten note from Mr. Thompson. You fought for us, let us clap, damn it. Hard to argue with that. I walk in and folks stand up and clap, not loud and wild, just steady and real. The interim HOA president gets up there and announces a full internal audit, all enforcement actions paused, indefinitely pending legal review, which is code for we're terrified and our lawyers told us to sit down. Karen, of course, is nowhere to be seen. Word is she's gone to stay with her sister in Arizona till it all blows over. I picture her in some gated community, lecturing a cactus about community standards. I don't say much at the meeting, just that no one should be bullied on their own land, that a piece of property isn't just dirt and paperwork, it's memories, work, peace, and nobody in a pantsuit with a clipboard should be able to fake their way into that. Life settles. Months go by. The pond reflects the sky instead of headlights. The only thing breaking quiet hours is a rooster with bad timing. One morning I check the mailbox and find a postcard, Cayman Islands, sunset, palm trees. On the back, in sharp, aggressive cursive, could have been your problem. Exo Karen. I laugh so hard I nearly spill my coffee. Of course she found a way to be passive-aggressive across international waters. I pin it on the corkboard in my workshop, right next to the court order, and a cartoon someone drew of Darla stomping on an HOA sign like Godzilla. Couple weeks later, a local news station asks if I'll do a little segment for Texans who stand tall. I tell them, sure, on one condition. So there I am, sitting on a hay bale in front of the barn, Darla by my side like a goat-shaped security detail, camera rolling. The reporter asks, what advice would you give someone facing HOA abuse? I grin. Know your rights, document everything, and if they bring a fake contract, you bring a real lawyer and a goat. They air it on Sunday. The next day I hang a new wooden sign at the front gate, burned into the plank with a branding iron. You are now entering Mercer Ranch. No trespassing. No HOA. Yes, we're serious. And underneath, in smaller letters, if you're looking for trouble, we've got a goat with an attitude. That's my happy ending. Me on the porch at sunset, beer in hand, Darla snoring near the steps, the ranch quiet except for crickets and the distant hum of the world minding its own business for once. And I keep thinking about how close it came to going the other way, how a fake signature and a scared neighbor can turn peace into a paycheck for somebody who's never set a boot in your pasture. So let me throw this back at you. When it comes to justice, do you think what happened to Karen and that HOA was fair, too harsh, or still not enough for what they did to folks out here? If someone tried to slap a forged contract on your front door and turn your home into their revenue stream, would you pay to keep the peace? Or would you fight until the dust settled like I did? Tell me where you draw that line. Share your stories about HOAs, neighbors, land, what feels right and what feels wrong, because I've told you my side, and now I want to hear yours.